computer. Stand up here. Okay, now I could properly do this. Hi, my wonderful community. Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for joining us today. It means a lot for me to have important guest speakers here, and I appreciate the time that you took to be here. And well, we're just gonna get right into it. We have a little bit of a late start, but Michael, can you just tell us a little bit about what you do, your background in home care, and what you're currently doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start off what I'm currently doing. I specialize in acquisitions. I do it in two different ways. One is in consulting and helping people buy businesses from, start from A to Z, essentially, right from identifying what types of assets to go for, what would be best for you and your end goals, as well as what you would, I would say, most likely be successful in overall. Then we go into essentially a process where we source deals, help with the financing, due diligence, structuring, all of it until you're essentially owning the business and you're also putting in your post-acquisition plans to grow it as well. That's what I do on the consulting basis. I also have an advisory service where I essentially do that whole thing for you. So I can either teach you how to do it or I do it for you. That's what I do now. It's my day to day, essentially Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday overall. And then in terms of how I got in this and my background, I originally grew up in California. I always wanted to be a hero. That was kind of my thing. So I went towards the fire service. That was the closest thing what a hero looked like. I admired people like Batman who essentially just had a lot of money and was able to utilize their skills and network to fight crime. But I had no idea of what that looked like here in real life, if you will. So firefighting was my overall career in my 20s. I did that. I was a medic fireman for the city of San Diego. I fell into business acquisition, starting with senior care assisted living, kind of on accident. Overall, my whole goal at the time, and I'm sure a lot of you as well. We have Michael, Olu, and Nora. Is that correct?
And then
And Zai. Did I say that correctly? Do they ever talk back?
not really. They
Yeah,
don't.
yeah, you said it right.
Yes, you're correct.
Awesome, awesome, wonderful. Well, one thing I would love to encourage you guys to as well, as much as you can, show your face, right? Because it's a relationship game, and whenever you're doing business, it's always going to be a relationship way. So it's not about who you know. There you go, Zai. It's about you being known by people. And so, and the good way of doing that is showing that you're a person and you can get their full attention, all of that kind of stuff. So I want to encourage you guys to always be engaged that kind of way. With that being said, I fell into senior care assisted living by accident because I was looking for an opportunity of not really just not having to work so much, right? My W-2 job as a fireman required me to be out of the home, away from my family, missing birthdays, missing holidays, all that kind of stuff. So, and to be honest, I was sick of being forced to work on someone else's dime, and I was like, I got to find another way to support my family and be present and really make my own rules, if you will. And so I went to a real estate meetup group to where this one guy, you may have heard of him, Gino Wickman, I think, no, not wrong Gino. Gene something else. I forgot his last name. And sounds good, Olu. Thank you for letting me know. And he introduced residential assisted living, and I thought that was a wonderful idea. And essentially, where you get a home, you have five, six bedrooms, and you're renting out each one of these bedrooms to seniors for $4,000 or $5,000 a pop. And I was like, let's go. Sounds like a great idea. And but I didn't want to essentially go through some other ways of making it happen. I want to go straight to the source. So I started calling senior care home operators and just asking like, hey, what's this all about? Is this something that's real? Like, how much are you doing? Like, how does it all work? And upon me, like, I think on my fifth call, I found someone who was looking to sell. And from that, we ended up doing a deal together. We did like a seller financing type of structure to where the seller becomes the bank and I pay him payments, for a certain period of time in order to take over the business completely. And it was still profitable. And that's what essentially like a year later, I quit my job and went in that full time and started doing some other entrepreneurial side gigs as well during that time. That was about 6 years ago now. Um, and and that's what brought me today, slowly buying businesses and real estate as a part of my portfolio and getting more involved into it, learning this trade overall.
Wow. And it's just been a mile a minute since, I'm sure.
Yeah. A lot of
Yeah.
mistakes, a lot of growing, a lot of learning, having some fun meeting people.
Good, great. So I normally just go ahead and ask questions afterwards, but what I would like, I want to do something a little bit different today. I would like for everybody to introduce themselves and tell Michael where you're at, or if you have any questions specifically for Michael, go ahead and do that. So whoever wants to go first, go ahead. Zainab, I see you first, so you go first.
I knew that was going to happen. Hello, everybody. My name is Zai. I am in San Antonio, Texas. I I'm active duty military, soon to retire. Submitted my retirement package. Whoop, whoop. So I see the light at the end of the tunnel is very, very close. So right now I am looking into I'm actually working with Michael, looking to acquire the existing business, something that's going to be mine post retirement. So I'm working with him to find the right fit for me and assist me in navigating the world of whatever I decide to go with. My main interests are either an assisted living home health because I'm a home care by trade, so those would be the two easiest routes to go. Or a business B2B business to business company, which I do a lot of supervising and managerial stuff right now anyway, so that'll be me just running a pre-existing business. That is about it. Oh, and if you hear noise, the main reason why I don't have my camera on is because I got a toddler. He's 3 going on 30, and he thinks everything that is mine belongs to him. So if you see him, you know why.
Thank you, Guy. Is it me or was she choppy or was that just on my end?
She was a little choppy,
Okay. All right.
but we can still
We
hear you.
heard you. We're a little choppy. Okay, who's next? Go ahead and show yourself and tell Michael a little bit about you, where you are, as far as your journey with home care. Nora?
Hi. Good evening. Hi, Michael. So, I own a home care agency in New Jersey. All right. So I do skilled and non-skilled, and then added recently the DDD service, so developmental disability individuals. So we do behavioral health, behavioral support, community-based support, OT, which is occupational therapy and physical therapy. Um, yeah, so yeah, I'm off in New Jersey and the time difference. So it's usually 6 p.m. our time, which is 3 p.m. California time. So yeah. And our agency is growing. We've been getting mostly workers' compensation, and we're hoping to add the Medicaid side of the home care side for our agency. So right now we only have it for the DDD side. So yeah, that's what I'll do. All
Okay.
right, it's nice to meet you, Mike. And thank you so much for coming on the call.
Pleasure to meet you, Nora.
Okay. And who's up next?
I can go next. Let's see here. All right. So my name is Olu Obianki. I'm living in the New England area, actually in New Hampshire. Um, a friend just kind of mentioned about your school platform, Mariam. So that's how I got to jump on because I'm interested in having a actually a home care business as well. But then again, when you sent Michael's uh, resume or just the flyer that got me interested because I've been looking into that as well. You know, what kind of is it possible that you can get a cash flowing business? And I already jump started and looking into that as well with a friend of mine. So currently, I do have a sober house that I'm running in Massachusetts. Started sometime last year. but it's not doing the kind of numbers that a group home would do or an assisted living.
Good work. Pleasure to meet you, Olu.
Nice to meet you, Olu.
Pleasure to Michael.
Guys, if you have questions while you're introducing yourself to Michael, go for it. I know, Olu, you said
Oh,
you
I have a whole bunch.
Do you have a lot? Okay, do you want to wait till everybody goes? Okay, let's do let's have everybody else
So,
introduce themselves first. Thank you, Olu.
yeah.
Let's go with Chinwe.
Or Amanda. Yeah, Amanda just joined. Amanda, we're having everybody introduce themselves, and Chinwe, I think she might be working too. But if you guys can introduce yourselves, and there we go.
Hey, I'm Amanda Robinson. I'm out in Katy, Texas. I'm sorry I joined late. I'm not for sure what I was supposed to say. I'm very interested in home care and just seeing what opportunities are out there and what's going on. So thank you for inviting.
Awesome.
Okay. Chinwe, if you're not available, that's fine. We can just move on. So we'll open the floor for questions for Michael or any questions for me. And we can just tag team. So yeah, have at it.
So like I said, I'm still in the office, still trying to finish up some work, but I'll be able to keep the camera on until 6:30. So as I said, I'm in the East Coast. Um, so Michael, just I know you said that you somebody wanted to sell the senior care facility to you. That's how you bought that. So is that the only one you have?
Yeah, it was. So I bought it was two senior care facilities. One was 8 bed, another one was a 9 bed one. So totaling 17 beds. When I bought them, they weren't occupied. Well, not fully occupied. It was probably like maybe 68%, 65. I'm just making up some numbers, but it was more than half was occupied. And so yeah, that was my very first acquisition. Were those two facilities, two different businesses. And it was well, I'll stop there before next I could talk on all day about them. So I'll let you lead some of those questions.
Yeah. So when you said so the is the same owner that owned I think I can is the same owner that owned both facilities?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so you said it was seller financing 100%?
Yes. So I came in
Wow.
with essentially like 12,500 for down payment. The total price point was 230,000 if I remember correctly. And so we did essentially like a payment plan over 5 years to pay off the rest.
Hi. Oh, okay. That was like short. Okay. And what percent? At what interest rate?
I don't remember. It was pretty low.
Must have
It
been
was,
good. Must have been good
yeah,
for you not to remember. Because
yeah, it was
it
like
was high.
it was essentially just to accommodate for inflation. So it was kind of like a very much of a handshake kind of deal. It was like, hey, so they're financing the rest, maybe 2%, like if that, to be honest. I don't, I wasn't really like when I first went into it, I had no idea what I was doing. And so, I was lucky to be with someone else who didn't know what they were doing, maybe. So that kind of helped out a lot in terms of like the structuring. It was, pretty low payment overall, all things considering.
So the 230, was that including real estate or minus real estate?
There was no real estate involved. So I did meet with both real estate owners upon the acquisition with a plan of at least buying one from them. So we kind of were working that into the deal. We ended up not going through with it on the real estate side, but that was something I was trying to swoop in as part of the acquisition. And
Okay.
I will
You
say,
said
just
one. Go ahead.
sorry.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would
Go
say
ahead.
one point to that was very helpful is, being able to have a position to where you had ready beds available, you had all your licenses in place, it because the demand was pretty easy to fill those, and all you have to do is, you're making relationships with placement agents, and I was trying to get to know everyone in the industry in order to find like, hey, we have an open home, we have some openings, and just kind of putting in place, and within the course of I would say maybe 2 months were fully occupied at that point with different private pay clients with one and maybe one heavily like Medicare client as well. I will say, and probably Mariam will also echo as well. Private pay was definitely the way to go. A lot easier to deal with. You get paid the first of the month. And with Medicaid and things of that nature, it's usually your last to get paid. And it's also pretty uh not the most like profitable areas to be in terms of a business. I know someone said a couple things about Medicaid or Medicare on here as well already, but private pay was definitely the way to go. It's a lot easier to, I would say, solve more wealthy people's problems than it is people who don't have anything, unfortunately, to say.
And you said one of them was 8 beds and the other one was 9 beds. So are these individual rooms or the shared rooms?
These were all individual rooms.
Oh, that's some big houses then.
Yeah. So they
Okay.
were actually residential homes. There was a builder at the time who was building these or retrofitting them. And they essentially gutted these normal homes and they made it into like more of a U shape inside the home to where they would place rooms all along the way. There was one main like living room and kitchen that was attached to the same area. And then they made like a U shape for everything else and built rooms for each one.
Wow, interesting. And this was in California,
This was in Idaho.
Idaho. Okay, so there's no space for that. Okay. And then when it comes to, so I looked at your website, maybe the day before. So I know you didn't talk much about it, but do you also support or do you encourage individuals to do SBA loans
I
or
do
business acquisition?
for the sake of leveraging capital. So SBA is another beast, or can be, in terms of if you've never gone through SBA loans before, they ask for a lot of information, and so it's definitely like a process to go through. But I do encourage SBA loans really for the sake of how much capital you can leverage in order, for these loans. Because what the SBA does and the Small Business Administration, they guarantee the loans to other banks, right, or non-bank lenders, and they guarantee, I believe, up to 75% of the loan. And so it makes small business acquisition less risky for lenders because it's a part of the loan is guaranteed to them.
Yeah,
And so that allows you to get in with a lot less capital, that you have to put forth overall. So that's why I do recommend them or seller financing in that matter. As long as you're able to have that, a good conversation with the owner and build rapport, get to know them well, and be able to structure something that makes sense for the both of you.
of course. I always believe that seller finance is the best, is the sweetest deal you could ever get, if it's structured properly, right?
Yeah,
Better
it
than
is
regular
if you
bank.
get good terms. And so, because you can get
Yes,
seller
yes.
financing, but with terrible terms, it doesn't matter. It's just like, might as well go with the bank.
They
So
might
you
as well,
have to
yeah.
have
Mhm,
terms. Yeah.
yeah, okay. And so I have a two-in-one question. When it comes to that deal you did, not now, not what, based on your experience now, the due diligence, how did you do your due diligence for that deal? And looking back 2020, do you think did you get somebody to do it or you did it yourself? And if you did it yourself, do you think that you do the same way again this time?
I would absolutely not do it the same way I did this time. So like I said, I didn't know what I was doing. But um, like 2020, if I know what I know now, I would do it myself. And that's because I've gone through a lot of reps on acquisitions and due diligence and things of that nature. So I know what to look for. I know what the red flags are. I know what questions to ask when I'm looking at, certain documents, tax documents, as well as P&Ls, and bank statements. But if you've never done it before, there's there's a couple ways to to essentially do it. There's a few firms that specialize in due diligence, and they're really expensive, to be honest. And some attorneys will do due diligence, and they're also really expensive too when they do it. Um, I it's good to go through a process like that on your first time so you know what to look for. However, it depends on the size. So if you're overall going for a pretty small business, and when I say small, I mean maybe less than a few million, um, it's usually like there's enough work there that you could probably do it yourself if you have any financial like literacy when it comes to it. If you know how to read profit and loss statements, if you know how to read tax statements, then I would say you could do it yourself. But if you don't, it might be in your best interest to get someone who does audits for a living, It doesn't have to be a due diligence specialist because they'll probably charge you around 20, maybe on like 20 grand, anywhere from 10 to 20 grand, which is kind of hefty.
Yeah.
Um, Now, on the lower price of that, it's a lot, it's very doable, but you can also find freelancers who could audit for you. Like, hey, I'm about to buy this business. Can you audit this profit and loss statement as well as this tax return and their bank statements? And can you, run it through a risk analysis and just pull up questions and maybe client concentration and just any risk factors that can apply to me upon buying this business and different questions that I need to ask in order to get more knowledge in that. And there's a lot of freelancers out there who you could probably do that for pretty cheap for for a few thousand, if you will, or maybe less. And that's probably how I would go about it if I had no knowledge of how to go through a due diligence process for myself overall.
Okay. And I have one more question, then I'll leave the floor for other people to ask. Um, so now you with your clients that you have right now, as you help them, because I know you mentioned earlier that you have different levels of support that you give to your clients. So where do you get most of your deals? I mean, because sometimes when you go to bizbuy.com, you see either brokers that are really difficult to deal with, or by the time you get to you actually get to speak to someone, the business is already under an LOI. So it seems like it's just like they've been sitting there for a long time before actually the activity has already taken place well ahead before it's actually put on the website.
Very good question. So wait, what was your question on that actually? But very good.
So how do you yes, how do you help? Do you always do you have other means of finding the deals of businesses?
Well, I will say, just to start with, there's really like three methods that I look into. And there's on-market deals, which is like Biz Buy Sell, right? One of the largest, platforms for that. Then there's something called off-market listings, which are technically on market, but they're being hoarded by different organizations, whether it be, there's a couple of them out there, like Axial is a very large one. You kind of need a good amount of money to enter into their community. And then there's Priv Source, which is like a membership. It's like $300 a month to be a part of that community, if you will. And then there's things like smaller ones called Rejig. Baton Market is another one. These are different areas where they're kind of like off-market listings. Though they're on market, I mean, you can go find them, but maybe they're not listed on Biz Buy Sell because they're being hoarded by, an organization, if you will. And those are the off-market listing sites. And there's off-market going straight to the business owners, like I did in my first one. And so starting with on-market, one of the best ways, because Biz Buy Sell does, like a lot of people will be like, oh, that's where businesses go to die, or they'll say, like what you just said, under LOI. Well, when you first enter it, like there's gonna be a lot that are already under LOI, right? Just because you're first getting engaged and getting exposed to it, you don't know how long it's been on the market for. And so you'll go through a lot of those. But some of my best deals I found have been on market. And it's just about, getting there quickly. And so when you're dealing with anything on market, you want to be fast. And one of my process I say about being fast is you look at the numbers initially, which is your cash flow, your revenue, and the asking price. And once you get those numbers and you think, hey, that looks good, and it's an opportunity that you want to dive into for the business type, you immediately talk to the broker, you talk to the owner, and you, as fast as you can, put it under LOI. LOI, it stands for letter of intent. It's non-binding. It says that I want to buy this business for this much, and these are the terms that I'm loosely kind of going towards. But what that does is it gives you exclusive rights to essentially go after that business. And you want to be quick about it. And when you're doing that, you want to put like literally, on market searches that as soon as a business pops up, you get notified and you attack it right away. That's probably the best way to work with on market deals, and you want to be quick about it, right? It shouldn't take you more than a week to like talk to the broker, the owner, and start moving that direction. Um, so that's how I would handle on market. Off market listings, you can be a little slower, but not really. It's still the same kind of pace because you have other individuals and buyers who are part of those places that you want to be able to talk to as well. But you'll pretty much find some of the same types of deals, in my opinion, on market versus off market listing sites. Just because the way it is overall. And in terms of, like, finding deals off market, what you do is you essentially build a list, of the criteria of what you're looking for. So if you're looking at a certain type of business type, you can also go on freelancing, websites like Fiverr, Upwork, what have you. You can build these B2B lists, and usually you want to get these lists from, I would say, reputable sources. So a lot of cheap ones out there will use LinkedIn Sales Navigator, which is kind of like the lower end, you know, access to business types, and I don't really like it all that much. But what I like to use or find, freelancers who use ZoomInfo or Lucia is another term that they use. Um, and those are usually some pretty decent leads that you'll get on the business types from there. There's certain parameters you want to reach for that too. So, and you can scope out some parameters. You can say like, hey, I want to look at businesses that have been around for this many years, right? So maybe like more than 5 years, or maybe it's 20 years. You want to have businesses that have owners who are a certain age, right? And that will help you narrow down your search to more the people who are more than or more likely to sell. And then um, those are some of the parameters I would put in the search. There's a few other ones that you can really like go after that really just depend on the industry. But that kind of helps whittle down like the focus of where you want to aim for. And when you're calling these business owners, right? They're not saying I'm looking to sell, right? They're just owning a business. Um, and so your goal is not necessarily to, I would say, hey, do you want to sell your business? Your goal is to really just build a relationship, right? And say, hey, my name's Olu. I'm really fond of, like the business that you've built. I'm looking to get into the industry myself. I was hoping to just have a quick conversation about, your business and seeing what it looks like, ask you a few questions. And hey, by the way, um, as you know, I'm looking to get in the industry. Do you know anybody who is looking to exit in the next, 3 to 5 years, right? Because whenever you're going into an industry like Mariam, Mariam knows a lot of the other home care agencies around her. She knows her competitors. She knows who she's dealing with. She knows who she's working with all the time, right? That's what a good operator would do. And so you want to expand when you're calling these owners. You want to expand your network through the person you're talking to, more so than you want to ask them if they're selling. Because with them and that one contact, you can expand that one contact to 5 different contacts, and that can continually grow consistently. And so it's really important that it's not about necessarily your network, it's about the network of the people you're talking to. And so you always want to shoot for that as your main goal, because that was far more valuable than asking if they're looking to sell, because you can get a way better deal that way than you can, through just asking and calling yourself, because now you're multiplying your efforts through the network you're creating by making those calls. And that's way more important.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Very welcome.
Michael, just to clarify with my notes, you did say to go on Upwork and Fiverr, if you want like the B2B list or the list of off market. What did you mean by going Upwork and Fiverr? I never thought of like, are you talking about to have somebody help you build the list?
Yes, and I say that because it's usually cheaper, because you can build your own list. You can build your list on Lucia and Apollo, and those are pretty inexpensive too as well if you sign up for the subscription. But then you also want to make sure it's clean, a overall clean list, for it, and put some parameters into it. But if it's your first time and you're only looking for one designated area, it's only going to cost you maybe 100 or 200 max to get a really good size list that you can work with from someone on Fiverr or Upwork, because they would essentially do the list for you. They'll build it out for you. And the reason why I would use that over than someone else is because I would say, they may have access to Zoom Info, and that's what I'm looking for. And Zoom Info is one of like the top, I would say, softwares out there. It costs about maybe $15,000 a year to use, and usually you have to pay that up front. So that's like why there's a value in going into Fiverr or Upwork to, save some costs, only pay a couple hundred for a small list, because really you're only doing this once, right? And so you're building a list once. So for that matter, it's like you don't need to build a whole subscription for it, but you might, want to have someone who has access to that and who can build a list for you, and then you can work that list in certain areas that are more pertinent to where you are located.
So for like, obviously I've used Upwork and Fiverr both. So you go in there, you would specifically look for like Zoom info. What would the title be for that person? Like
So
what would be the name of that person that's helping me build that list off of Zoom info?
great question. So typically it's going to be it's going to be like B2B lead generation is what you're searching for,
Mhm.
right? And then you can even put in the keyword search Zoom info. But it's usually when you're talking to these freelancers, you're asking specifically, hey, what do you use to generate your list? Because and be very clear, I'm not interested in using just sales, navigator for LinkedIn. Like that's missing out on a whole lot of opportunity there. Like, how do you scrape data? Because that data is going to be very important, and how recent is that data? And so that's why I like Zoom Info is a very clear because they're the most expensive data and they're usually the most accurate and they go right to the decision maker most times. So a lot of these other lists, if they use certain, other databases to pull their info from, it might come from like the general business line, which is the front desk person. You don't want to talk to the front desk person. You want to talk to the decision maker. So that's why Zoom Info, you can, specifically find out who that is. And as well as like Apollo can do that too, and Lucia can do that as well. But really, you want a database that scrapes from the Secretary of the
State,
State.
state.
Yeah, thank you. To that pulls information of the business owner, who's the one who's making, decisions or who the owner is, who they like, what their title is, etc. And that's why you want to be very specific with your data collection on that point.
Okay, thank you so much. I didn't even know that. In my mind, I was like, I gotta go to the yellow pages. Go down
Hey,
the
that
list.
that works. I mean, when I first started too, it was I didn't even do any of that, right? I went on Google and I searched up businesses and I just called up from Google. So and that works. It works. But it just takes a long time
The
if you
quality, like you said, the quality of the leads, the quality of the list is going to dictate the outcome of your efforts,
yeah.
really. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, you're back.
Yeah, just a follow-up to that. So how do you, because if you're talking about freelancers on Upwork, Fiverr, all those different platforms, how would they be, would they have access to these, like Zooming for you're saying now, there's a subscription fee for it. And if they're just freelancers, do they really have the money to constantly put down? I know bigger organizations that tend to always help in, M&As, I know they will have that. But these individuals, that's one. Two, if the individual gives me what will be so I have to definitely create a buy box, right? And that's what I provide to this individual. But the question is, what number do I give him? I had a virtual assistant that was working for me once before, and I'll give him a certain number that he has to do in a day. He didn't even know how to scrape. I had to show him how to scrape from Yellow Pages. Yeah. So he was doing different things, but that was that I had to teach him that. And then I had to give him a certain number every day for him to provide for me. If he didn't meet that number, you're not getting paid that day.
Yep.
So how do you set that parameter for them?
Great question. So if you're hiring a virtual assistant, that's a whole different ballgame, right? It's better to hire
Oh,
someone
yes,
who knows
it's
what they're
separate.
doing.
It's separate, yeah.
Yeah, that will dictate what it looks like. But some parameters I would do, and if I can, am I allowed to share my screen? Awesome. I'll show you a little bit of that. So when you are putting the parameters in for like someone who's using it, right? So a lot of the time, like these people who are freelancers, maybe they just have the subscription, they went through a back door, or they work for a large company already.
Okay.
Let's see, what screen are you guys seeing? Just want to make sure it's the right one. The
What
chat.
can I help you with?
Okay, yep, perfect. So if I'm looking at, um, let's say I'm looking for on Fiverr and I want to build a list. I would say utilize like, the different tools at your disposal that can help you just cut the cost really quickly, right? So I would ask ChatGPT, hey, I'm looking to build an off-market list for home health care agencies. What type of parameters should I include in a search that I can give to a freelancer um, so that I can get the most accurate data of owners who may be looking to sell. And, just to make it easier on your life, right? Things of that nature. So you can help them filter both a few different things. Some of these things may not be as good. NAICS codes may be a really good one. So that's one thing. Hey, can you look up searches for this? That home health care agencies, geographic. I'm looking in these cities, these counties, local radius, company size is a big one. I use that a lot. Like how many employees do I want? Annual revenue, years in business, if you will. So often 8+ years, more likely to have an owner nearing exit. And if you get too specific, it might not give you a whole lot of opportunities, but it might be a good place to start, right? And making sure it's the owner decision making data overall. So that's what it would look like. Make sure it includes these contacts.
Yeah.
Indicators that would be maybe willing to sell, right? Owner's age 55 plus, public records, etc. Business with recent compliance issues. So that means they're just having issues and are just burnt out. They're tired, they might just want to sell and say bye-bye, right? So company revenue plateau or decline, that's a really good one too. And you can, search these databases as well. So all these things right here in terms of what it looks like, that would help you get to a focus or a really good list. Um,
Okay.
and that would be my
So the
recommendation.
number six there, that number six, it has the LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Will you kind of exclude that, right? Make sure you exclude that from.
Yeah, I mean, you can always include it, but I would say use a database that's going to be from ZoomInfo or something of that nature. And I would
Yeah.
just be very clear about that.
Yeah, I see that it didn't mention it here. It didn't mention Zoom Info, so that's why. And I know of it, as you said.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Well, thank you.
Mhm.
Very helpful.
And some good places. Oh, you're asking a lot of good questions. And so, like, what I'd encourage for everyone else to as well is, I would say think about the questions that are going to be most pertinent for your most important next step. Because excuse my stuttering. You don't need to know, what's going to happen like way down the road, right? And all what's important for you is in your situation. So I would, whenever I'm in a group call like this, or whenever I'm trying to learn from somebody who has maybe a lot more experience than I do, I always think to myself, and this I would encourage, not just Olu, Nora, Amanda, is she still here? She's not here anymore. Okay, Zinky. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, but things I would look into for that is I would say, what is the most important next step for me to get towards my goal? And ask that question. And based on where you're at, I would ask whoever the experienced person is how that's applied to you. And that would help you with whatever you're doing. So anything you're thinking of doing in terms of next steps, I would say, what is my most important next step? Or even asking like, what should be my most important next step be in my situation? And I would encourage you, whenever you're on a group call like this, or you're learning from someone or another speaker who has, you know, some kind of experience, ask those questions, because that's going to be huge in your growth and your movement of being able to move forward really at your next stage. And that's what's important, rather than just hearing and letting it be led by the contender or whoever is working it. Like, ask yourself the question, what's the most important next step for me to move on to my next level so that I can continue my journey?
Okay. Thank you. So I think one of the biggest questions I always had at the back of my mind is quality of earnings, due diligence, from the lawyer, the accountant. If I do for a deal, and then at the end of the day, we find out that a deal doesn't work, and I've already spent $10,000 to $15,000 on the due diligence, can I do that again? That's where I think it's always been that stumbling block.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a couple layers of due diligence that happen, right? So if you're going with a bank, there's an automatic due diligence that happens with them. Because if the bank is not going to lend on that business if it's a bad deal. So they do their own evaluation, they do their own underwriting, and I would say let them do that first wave of due diligence for that business.
Okay.
The secondary due diligence is where you're spending a lot of money, and that's when you're like, hey, I'm going to sign an APA. An APA is an asset purchase agreement. It's pretty much the final document that you're signing and agreeing that this is my business. And so that's when you're usually paying the big bucks for the due diligence, if you will. But once again, there's more cost-effective ways to make that happen. But you still need to have like a general idea and knowledge of, what questions should I be asking? or what are my risk factors to this? And, you know, it's hard to say in doing due diligence. I don't really like attorneys doing due diligence. I've never really seen a great attorney go through due diligence yet. It's just my opinion. CPAs, to be honest, aren't really specialized in due diligence either. I would say maybe the ones that do audits could be a good one to go through, but they're not all made the same either. Usually there's business evaluation experts who will do this, and they're not even CPAs, but they just evaluate the business, and they do a quality of earnings their own way. Um, but what I would say is on that note is yes, that first one's very expensive. But once you kind of know what you're looking for and what the risk factors are, and what you're and once again use AI, like ask, hey, what are the qualifications that I should be looking for and risk factors I should be looking for in a due diligence? And I would say anything that affects the cash flow or stability of that cash flow is what you want to do due diligence on. And so there's the basic quality of earnings, which is not really, that's not hard to do once you do it, once you know how to do it. It may be hard for some, I will say. But really it's following the money and asking risk factors and seeing where things don't line up. That's across the board, any auditor can do. Then there's the other part of the due diligence where you're verifying the things that affect the cash flow. So, to give you an example, if you're looking at, let's say an imaging center for a doctor's office or that you wanted to buy. Well, I'm going to do due diligence on those imaging centers because that's a very priced item. Like I want to see how often they need to get fixed. What's the lifespan of those? When would I need to replace it? Right? Because I want to know when I'm going to have to like invest in these CAT scans and these MRI machines, and that's going to be a really pretty penny. Um, Same thing if you're going like something into like in the home healthcare industry, it's really going to be based on your team and more licensing types of agreements, and the current clients in there now and what their client concentration is. So if you have like all Medicare or all Medicaid, I mean, type clients, well, what type of Medicaid clients are they? And are like the bottom, like how much are you getting from them? So I do a lot of like assisted living type, analysis from time to time, and what I see a lot is just what's easy for assisted livings to get into, which is Medicaid, because everyone could essentially qualify for Medicaid if they're broke, but that's also the bottom tier money that you're making. And so I want to know what that client concentration is, what the agreements that they're signing, the leases that they're signing, how long you have to stay with them, because that's the cash flow that's tied to your cash flow.
Yeah.
And so, for me and I'm also thinking in the marketplace, if I'm looking at assisted living or home care, like what area is it located in? Is there a high income area of families, right? Because typically who puts their people in the home, it's going to be their sons, their daughters, or somewhere, and they're going to be close by to where they live typically. And if that's the case, I want to be in a very well-to-do neighborhood to where people can afford private pay types of who want to care for their facilities. And so you want to make sure, one, is that location or wherever you're going to buy, is it in an area that's well to do if you want to get high, top dollar. Um, and really you're following where the money is. And one and two, like in terms of like the location, is the actual facility a place where in terms of what it looks like? Is that someplace where a high dollar person is going to be putting their mom or dad, right? And so if it's not, well, how much is it going to cost in order to make it so? And so those are the things that you want to have, answers to as you're, deciding whether or not if that's a worthwhile purchase for you.
Thank you. So just two things. One is the comment and the other one is the question. So the comment is for the diagnostic center, apart from, the how long the scanning machines, CT scans and all that, how long they've been there. Two other big factors are number one, your operator, and then the person who's going to read it, so which is your radiologist. If you have a big problem if you don't have a regular person to read your scans, you're just going to be losing a lot of money from hospitals, from even clinical trials, from different programs that want to need that scanning. And I kind of work with a group of people and where you see that constantly. And so that's a very big factor there. But then when it comes to you talked about healthcare facilities. I'm sorry, the home care facilities. Is that where you specialize in when you help individuals in acquiring businesses?
Great question. I specialize in like I guess overall all service-based businesses and as well as like even software companies. And those are probably like my two like well, I would say more so service-based is like my big focus. Software I'm still new in. Light manufacturing I'm really new in, but they kind of come with the same type of like due diligence, if you will. But just to like make another comment on your earlier comment as well. Um, so you had mentioned in terms of having an operator or a radiologist and those things, and if you don't have them, it may not be well. That's like that's I would say that is that's a matter of convenience, right? Who they already have employed is a matter of convenience. And so if you're going into a business and buying a business and looking at the convenience factor of that, it's nice to have, but it's not like you don't want to rely on that. And sometimes I'd rather it like I'd rather may have a good team already set in place. That's really valuable. But you know, there was a Google did a crazy like great advertising to acquire, really good staff. And they put a bulletin board on a building right across the way from Yahoo headquarters. And it said, "Fish where the fish are." And that's all they said. They didn't, and it was a huge publicity stunt. And everyone know, what does this mean? Like, fish where the fish are. Like, I don't get that. Like, so people started looking it up and got, really into it. Really, it was a marketing campaign to get staff members who are already well qualified in their competitor, right? In terms of who could, so they don't have to train them up.
Yeah.
And so one of my tactics I love, like encouraging to do is when you're buying a business, look up who your competitors are who are doing 4x revenue of what that business is already doing. And I would poach I haven't really done this well, but what I do encourage others to do well is I would poach those operators who are doing 4x revenue because now you can get high quality talent who has already ran and operated at a high level and a high, efficiency level, and you could make a sweet deal for them as long as, you can pay them what they're worth, one, but two, incentivize them to be with you. And you can post them like, hey, I'm buying this business over in this direction. I would love for you to, come work with me. You make what, 140,000 a year? I will give you 160,000 a year or whatever it is, right? And on top of that, I want to give you equity in this company because I wanted you to bring it to a certain level that of where you're already operating at. And that is a way better position, being more aggressive in that nature than to find and see like, oh, I only have this company has these level players. Okay, who cares, right? Like you want to have high level players in your company and you're not going to do that passively. You don't want to look into something passively or conveniently. You want to be looking at who are the sharks in my town. I'm going to give them a better offer and I'm going to bring them into my company and scale it to where they're at. And you'd rather fish for the people who are already doing it, right? You want to know that they've done it, that they want it, and they have the capacity to do it. And so if you give them a better offer, they will, I mean, unless they have some crazy loyalty. But if you give them a better offer than what they're receiving, why wouldn't you, right? It's as long as there's security, because they're looking for security just as much as you are.
Yes, I'm sorry. Maybe I wasn't clear. What I meant was when you're looking at radiology, because we looked at one, a radiologist, and is those are the two main big individuals, not the
Oh,
business. Whether the business is not there, I will even go a step beyond, poaching, as you said. What we're looking at is all the schools where there is training for operators and all the hospitals where you have the big radiology centers. You will find
mm,
radiologists that work part-time. All you need to do is get some of them that work different shifts. But the operators, once you can get a school, just stay there, be with them, be friends with them. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that for that company. No, I don't even care. I'll even overstaff the place and have,
yeah,
but it's a very good business, super good.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
I
Thank you
think
very much. Very good.
Well, those are some great questions. Olu, you came heavy hitting today.
so.
Thank you. Um, I love what you said, Michael, especially about well, backing it up a little bit. Last Q&A that we had, I was telling the group then, like you need to I can sit here and tell you guys A through Z what to do with scheduling and staffing, hiring, marketing, recruiting. You need to focus on what your next actual step is. So it's nice to hear that come back up into this Q&A because that's the primary lesson that I was trying to get across the last Q&A. You know, you guys have
Mm,
amazing questions, but they're light years ahead of where you need to look
mm,
at originally. So, like,
yeah,
yes, those are questions you're going to worry about in the future, and not to burst anybody's bubbles, but no matter what business you're going to be in, you're always going to worry about how I'm gonna get clients, how am I get employees. That's always going to be a worry. Your next step should always be, okay, or your next question should always be, what do you think my actual next physical like step is? And that's important. So thank you for saying that. And then also, um, more personally, people look at me crazy when I say that I want to offer an operator equity. They like Michael, I kid you not. At the times that I've like, as you know, I'm looking to buy another home care agency, and the operator that I want to hire, they need to be a triple A player. And I'm willing to pay them. I'm willing to give them equity. And I kid you not, so many people look at me like I just grew a second head when I bring
yeah,
up equity. It felt very validating to hear you say that because I'm like, I knew I'm onto something. They need to have buy-in, not just the
yeah,
salary, you know.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's
I completely agree, right? Because it fosters ownership and you want them to have ownership. And, if you look at anything like that's grown big, guarantee there's equity splits and share. I mean, you look at, Jeff Bezos owns, I think, maybe only 20% or less
way less.
of his
Yeah.
company. Yeah. There's a reason for that.
Mhm.
And same with, Bill Gates owns very little, I think 1% of the company now. Elon, same. Like he doesn't own, so when you're looking at some of these big guys or big companies, they give equity away in order to grow to another level. And so if you're looking at equity, like that's part of the game. It kind of ask yourself the question, would you rather have everything 100% owning yourself and you do everything and you're responsible for everything? Or if there's someone who's already been there, done that, and who can take it to that next level, would you want to own a little bit less, right? And I would rather have a small, bite of large pies than, if you will, a very large pies in percentage than I would a whole pie that's very small for myself.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. This was great. I'm so glad I remembered to record. We have some very valuable information here, and I'll post it and I'll send you a link to Michael. So thank you again so much. Hopefully we have you again on here soon.
absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank
Can
you,
I ask
everybody.
one more question? Can I ask one more question for
Yeah.
Michael just real quick? I know we
Okay. Michael, if you
so
have time, if you don't mind,
oh,
Michael.
I'm so
I'm good.
sorry.
I have an owner meeting in 30 minutes, but I have some time. So.
Just 1 minute. Just want to ask. So now, like, how many since you started your acquisitions and you've had these senior care livings, how many do you have of them?
No, so I actually sold both of those
Oh,
a few years back. And then in my beginning stages, I didn't really understand, like, I'm not a good operations guy. I know my strengths and my weaknesses, and operations is not one of them. So for my mind, I could only do like one business at a time. My first few years is how I operated. So I would sell, like buy, sell, essentially is what I did. Now I'm more of like, okay, well, I can find people who can run and operate it, and I know how to like take a step back and give more away to be able to hold on to it, let it grow, and then move on to the next thing. I'm definitely a guy who likes to chase the new deal, if you will. That's kind of like my personality, so I lean into that. But since then, bought a few companies. I bought a management company as well that I sold. Also, I wish I kind of kept that, but once again, sold it. That was my earlier stages. But since then, I bought a hotel, crime scene cleanup company, and then started two new companies on the consulting side and the advisory side. And yeah, now I'm in a different position now to where I try and I've been at a rate of buying a business once a year. And but now I'm taking a little bit of a different approach in terms of my acquisition strategy. And to be honest, I'm kind of leaning it more towards how I'm naturally built. And so, like I said, I think there's not no everyone loves novelty. Everyone loves the new thing. But for me, I'm just not good at sticking with one thing. I would say the one thing I'm good at sticking with is my marriage. Um, but and having my kids, so that's a good thing. But overall, I would say when it comes to businesses, um, I get bored easy once I figured out how to run it or how to be successful in it. And so what I'd rather do is acquire something new, build it up, fix it, fix that problem, and then hand it off to someone else. That's kind of more of my strategy because I like finding new opportunities to structure and to build. So that's kind of my strategy now.
So we can call you a serial entrepreneur then.
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mariam.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Michael. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you guys. I'll be posting this here shortly. And hopefully we see you again, Michael.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you guys so much for having me on.
Bye. Thank you.